Is Lori Bonification is Lori Bonification is Lori Bonification is Lori That was a great idea. Thank you so much. And now you may be seated, Rotary. While you are enjoying your lunch, we have arranged a special treat for you all. Entertainment for your dining pleasure. Today, we are spotlighting a special Rotarian who is also a very talented pianist, the amazing Charlie Kastner. Charlie. We Charlie, stand up. Come on. We can give you a hand. Stop it. Charlie, stand up. We can give you a hand. All right. It is always our pleasure to welcome guests. Rotarians, please take this time to introduce yourself first, and then your guests. And guests, please take a stand to be recognized when your name is called. And as you're coming to the microphone, I would like to welcome Christopher Manzo. He is the owner of architectural firm known as SNDBX Design Collaborative. Please stand. Thank you and welcome.
President Jean Cliff Elgin. My guest is Chelsea Ellis Hogan, who is President and CEO of Jim Reynolds Asphalt, also a published author and a mentor to many other young women, a superstar.
Hello, fellow Rotarians. My name is Cynthia Brown, and I would like to introduce, I'll be introducing her later, but Jody Miles is my guest today and her son Granite. They were literally an overnight stay in Kentucky, heading from Missouri to Cape Cod. So I'm really glad you guys could come this morning. Thank you so much.
I'm President Jean with the Trust Company. I would like to introduce you to Randy Jenkins, the Eclipse Bank.
President Jean, I'm Rick Harden. My guest today is Dan Siebert, an attorney here in town for some several years and a real good guy.
We usually give a salute to Rotarians when they were in the news, but today it is Cliff's guest who deserves a special kudos for a great Courier Journal article just yesterday about her as CEO and owner of Jim Reynolds Asphalt Company and the positive difference she's making in her community. So salute to you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jody. Guests, if you would like to learn more about our Rotary Club, please stay after the meeting for a brief "What is Rotary?" Meeting with who's doing What is Rotary? Mike Richardson over there at the table. Please go there. You may have a folder with information. Please look through it while you're having a lunch and then check with Mike. And now to introduce today's guest speaker is Cynthia Miles Brown. Cynthia is owner and business development of Signorama Dixie. Signorama, what do I Signorama? What happened? Signorama Dixie. Thank you, Cynthia.
Hello, fellow Rotarians. Such a pretty day. I can't look up in the glasses and down at the same time. So it is my true honor to introduce our guest speaker for today. Jody Miles is the co-founder and co-executive director of Earth's Classroom, a nonprofit outdoor learning center in East Central Missouri. Earth's Classroom was founded in 1999 by Jody and her husband and business partner, Bill Miles. It has been an influential outdoor education program provider for over 20 years. Nearly 70,000 youth and adult participants and multi-day hands-on environmental learning programs. As a professional outdoor educator, Jody has multiple field science research projects under her belt. She's tracked wolves in the Canadian border, studied freshwater mussels in Ozark streams, has done orchid research, bat research, deer browse research, and has even tracked tarantulas in Missouri glades for genetic studies. She's a federally trained fire crew boss, certified to conduct ecological and prescribed burns, and has been trained in climate science studies by the National Aeronautics and Space Administration and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. In addition, Jody has about 4,000 logged miles in a canoe. All of this experience helps her bring life to natural sciences by using the real natural world as her blackboard from which to teach. Jody's passion and superpower is to interpret hard, complex sciences to the general public in an understandable and relatable way. She is one of the smartest women I know and one of the toughest. And as a bonus to me, somehow my brother convinced her to marry him about 25 plus years ago. So, fellow Rotarians, please welcome Jody Miles from Earth Classroom to the podium.
I move. My poor parents, I was always moving. Okay. So I am actually here today because of a training I did in 2019, in March of 2019 in downtown Atlanta, Georgia. There was about 2,000 of us that did a multi-day training with NASA NOAA atmospheric scientists, as well as, because we were in the Atlanta area, atmospheric scientists from the local universities within that area as well. And so every 6 months, because we did that training, we are allowed to access a hub of scientific data, about 600 different data slides that we can then share with the general public. That's why I'm here today. And thank you so much. Cynthia, you almost made me cry. Okay, I'm going to start off with this slide because this is the first slide that I was actually introduced to this topic. When I was 17 in the early 1990s, I traveled up, like a lot of juniors and seniors in high school looking for the college you want to go to. I traveled up to northern Wisconsin to a college that I was interested in. And when I was visiting the bio lab, they had this up on the screen. And I was very confused about what I was seeing, but I was listening to them discuss it. And I was only actually seeing just a portion of it from about right here, early 80s to early 90s, spread out across the screen. I'm going to share with you what it is because I think it's very important that you understand the information, then you can actually appreciate it. So I'm going to go slow at the beginning and then I'm going to go really, really fast. So hold on there. All right. This here actually is because of a man named Dr. Keeling. Dr. Keeling in the late 1950s set up an area in the archipelago islands of Hawaii on a mountainous island. He hauled up a huge generator, was at the top of this mountain, and he developed a system that can actually take the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere and plot it on a graph. And it was actually the very first time in scientific history that we could actually see the northern hemisphere like breathing in and out whenever. So this portion, let me point this out. See this little jiggy jaggy? This is blown up right here. This January, April, July, October, when our foliage is gone, all the leaves are down, the CO2 naturally goes up in our atmosphere. And when the leaves come out, because in photosynthesis, the carbon becomes the mass of them, the CO2 goes down. This is a natural occurrence. So this is all the up and down. These are the seasons passing by. The question is, why, and his son has taken this research all to present time, why does this line go up? Uh-oh. It went away when I forwarded. Did I do something? There we go. Okay. All right. Thank you. This image was actually taken in December December 24th, 1968 by the astronauts during the Apollo missions. And this one actually was a group of men, they were circumnavigating the moon, and as they came across, this is the very first image of us looking back at ourselves from the moon's perspective. And this is called Earthrise. This image right here was taken just a few years later, and this is the most reprinted image known on planet Earth, and it happens to be of Earth. This was taken by Apollo 17. NASA provided this image because they really want you to see the perspective of what our atmosphere is. This illuminates the lower two levels, the troposphere and the stratosphere, so you can actually really see how thin that protective layer is across planet Earth. Because even as a kid, when you look straight up into the sky, it feels like it goes on forever and ever. But if we jumped into a car and drove as fast as we like to drive on an interstate, within 5 to 10 minutes, we're beyond or at the edges of what you're seeing right here. It is very thin protective film across the planet Earth. So let's make sure we all understand exactly how our atmosphere works. There's 3 different main electromagnetic energies that come from the sun. And when they come towards us, going through our atmosphere, about 48% of that energy is actually absorbed into our Earth's surface. But 29% of it, boom, bounces off and goes right back out into outer space. And the last 23% of it hits all the little particles that are within, all the little molecules that are within our atmosphere, like water vapor, carbon dioxide, whatever's floating up there, bounces off of those and comes back to us. And this is a good thing. This is what keeps our temperature stable. But as additional molecules are being added to our atmosphere, that intensity increases in heat. And as of right now, we know where you're spewing, they can measure about 162 million tons of man-made global warming in one day that we're putting into our atmosphere. We know that they can measure in an industrial level that these are the main sources of all those different molecules that they're measuring in our atmosphere, but without a doubt, this is the greatest one. It left again. Am I doing something? I'm just forwarding the slides. Is the battery dead on this? That wouldn't do that.
I
No.
think it's the size, but keep trying.
We see it on our screens and we don't know why it's not.
Not going there? Huh. Let me progress again.
No, I'm not controlling it. You've got the blue chart.
I backed up.
It is the Zoom connection and the size of the files.
It's the size of the files. Is that what I heard you say?
I think so, but it connected before. I'll try it again.
Okay.
It's the Zoom connection.
Uh-oh, I'm gonna really hurt its system when I go fast. Because this is slow. Aww. It's probably because the connection with the Zoom is low.
The combination of both. They zoom to the screen and the size of the files. So I'm wondering if I'm advancing it, then
Okay,
maybe-
okay. Okay, so I'm not gonna touch anything right now, I'm just gonna speak, and we'll see what happens. Okay, the top one, this is another slide, I'm gonna go slow, and then I'm gonna go really fast, and we'll see what happens. The top row, I'm always the one who's like, how did they make that graph? This shows up to 800,000 years ago. The blue line shows the CO2 concentration within our atmosphere, parts per million. And you can see 0 is current time. And we're right, we were naturally on an upward curve that happens every 120 or so thousand years. They got this from basically Antarctica. Just like the rings of a tree, annual rings of a tree, you can count how old a tree is. They can count the annual rings of the winter snowfall 2 miles deep into Antarctic's ice, counting at least 800,000 annual rings of snowfall. They pick a ring, they pull it out, they melt it, and the little tiny pockets of air in there, they count all the CO2 within that air. It's a capsule of what the atmosphere was there. So that's how they designed that. The bottom one, the temperature, I'm going to speed up here. It has to do with oxygen 16, oxygen 18. Not going to go into that, but basically 2 totally different studies, and you can see they're correlated. Whatever the CO2 rises, falls, so does the temperature of the earth. But as the end of 2019, this is where we were, and it's not going forward. There we go. Oh, it's bypassing it. In 2019, this is where we were in concentration of CO2 in our atmosphere here on planet Earth, well above 400 parts per million. And if we do nothing in the next 40 years and we continue to pump ancient carbon out of our Earth's crust into our atmosphere, this is where they project us to be. And did it go away again? Okay.
I think it's, I'll advance it. Just let me know. I think it's your remote.
You think it's the remote? I have a different remote. Granted, would you go get my remote? It's in my bag, right behind him on the thing, okay? If you think it's the remote, I'll throw up my hands. We're gonna go fast here. But it's gone again. It's in the bottom of the bag. Can you find it? It's in the bottom. Okay, now you gotta get the little thing out, plug it in. Good. Look at that. It's just like yours, except maybe better. We'll hope. I bet it's the Zoom thing. I'm thinking.
Yeah, that's probably true.
You all tell me what time you need me to stop, because then I'll just stop, because I know this was gonna be pressing for time anyways.
It seems to appear on the big screen after the animation is finished.
Okay,
That's what's happening.
okay, so there's no
And
animation.
there it is.
Okay, we're jumping multiple
What
slides here, but this is, okay, this is very disjunct, but nonetheless, this is the hottest years on record in the last 7 years. 2020 were actually, by NASA and NOAA, the hottest years on planet Earth, down to 2014. 2016 was our second. Okay, I'm advancing. Now, let's talk about heat. When the sun actually comes to the earth, most of that heat is going, of course, to the equator, but we know that the earth and heat transfers in 3 main ways. And this movement is very important because this is what actually creates all of our different circulatory systems on the planet, like our jet streams and such. But they know that as of right now, 1 degree Celsius increase at the equator actually equals to 3 times that in increase in temperature at the poles. And that's because something you all know very well. You were taught this when you were in elementary school. If you don't want to be hot during the summer out in the sun, you don't wear what color? Black. You can't wear black because that will absorb a lot of energy. If you wear white, it's reflective. The snow at the poles are very reflective, but because they're melting, the dark water is showing. Thus, it is heating exponentially faster at the poles, 3 times faster. And this is starting to change the way the currents are flowing in the oceans and also our jet stream. Okay, so NOAA produced this for us to understand. There is a very distinct, stable polar vortex. It's like its own jet stream at our poles. And the jet stream stays nice and strong, goes across our continent from west to east. But because the temperature differentiation isn't as great anymore from the poles to the equator, the jet stream is losing strength, slowing down. And I know you can understand it this way. It's hot, 97 degrees outside during the summer, very sultry and hot. And the weatherman says that there is a cold front moving through, and on the backside of that front, it's 67 degrees. You've been around the sun well enough to know that that's intense, because the differentiation between 67 and 97 means that there's going to be intense winds, correct? You're going to batten down your hatches and be prepared, because that can be intense storms. Versus the weatherman saying 97 degrees outside and there's a cold front moving through, but on the backside of the front is 92. Are you that worried? Not that worried. So what is occurring here is the temperature differentiation being really strong between the poles and the equator keeps the flow of the jet stream very strong and intense. But now it is getting weaker. It's slowing down because the temperature differentiation is quite not as different from the poles to the equator. And so the jet stream is becoming wavier, weaker, and the polar vortex isn't staying in place. It's moving around. Oh. Can't quite handle the jet. So this is an example of what they're seeing from space. The jet stream is becoming wavier. Steeper troughs and higher ridges mean weather systems progress more slowly, raising the chances for long duration extreme events like droughts, floods, and heat. So whoever's living right here is experiencing the same thing over and over again for an elongated period of time, because the jet stream is getting wider and slowing down and not pushing systems out. Is this making sense? I hope so, because it's been a little distracting. Okay. All right, so here's an example, December 5th. That was an example of a normal jet stream with a normal polar vortex at the North Pole, holding the cold air in its place. But unfortunately, I think because of the Zoom, all of the animation that they're doing just isn't cutting it. I don't know if I can advance to slides that have no animation. And I can't.
I can try.
Yeah, let's just. Absolutely.
So you get that.
Okay, okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's talk about the. I'm gonna ask a loaded question right up front.
Okay, please do.
Why has this become so politicized?
Well, there's a lot of money with what has our source of energy that we have relied on. Of course, that's probably a big one, right? Saving money, such as fossil fuels, our use of fossil fuels and our dependence on fossil fuels. But the bummer is that it was actually going to go on a little bit of a deep ride here and be a little heavy, because you were going to see all the places across the planet Earth that have had record-breaking incidences and the increase of anomalies of all these different changes, because the chemistry of our atmosphere is actually changing, and they can measure this very distinctly. And the biggest distinct one is the amount of ancient carbon that the planet Earth has taken many millennia to sequester over time, and yet we're going in and pulling it up all like almost instantaneously in time and putting it within our atmosphere.
In the form of gas, fossil fuels.
Yes, to run all of this and to run our vehicles, that sort of thing. But then it was going to take a turn, because it was going to be inspirational at the end, because The end, actually, you're seeing what countries and different organizations across the whole planet Earth are actually really pushing a different movement. Of course, a lot of it has to do with solar and wind, but it's all kinds of efficiencies in building as well, and a huge economic boom just going into buildings that are already existing and changing their efficiencies. And of course, solar and wind is a really huge one. Just in 2020, last year, the new energy that was produced, almost 90% of it was all renewables.
Oh.
Solar, wind, and some other renewables as well, like hydro and stuff. Of the new energy that was constructed in 2020 across the planet Earth, 90% of it was renewables. Here in our own country, 81% of it was renewables. So we are starting to catch up with some of the other countries that were part of the Paris Agreement at the very beginning. And there's some countries that are just skyrocketing with solar. There is more than 1 in 5 homes across the whole continent of Australia that have solar panels on their roofs. More than 1 in 5.
Why are we so far behind the other countries? Again, because of the money.
And leaders. We need leaders to fully understand this and take big, bold steps. Part of the talk also had to deal with, have we ever been brave enough and crazy enough to do any kind of intense technology switch before ever? And they brought up a great one. Let me see if I can remember. 1980, AT&T did a survey thinking that they would have about 900,000 cell phone customers in 20 years, okay? It was actually 120 times that within the 20 years. And they were like, how did we get this so wrong? Well, what happened is 3 main things. First off, the technology improved exceptionally fast. Second, the cost of it went way, way down. And the third thing is that all of the countries that are not wealthy countries totally leapfrogged the old ugly lines everywhere and went straight to cell phones. So 1.5 billion of us in good, strong countries got cell phones, but 6.5, nearly 6.5 billion cell phone connections in other countries leapfrogged the technology of the old landlines. So there's all kinds of different examples of where we can go really, really fast. And some of those countries are completely leapfrogging it. And you can see in Bangladesh and all these images that I was going to have of all these solar panels showing up, and they're just totally bypassing the other technology. But they have to have assistance to do that too. So it's like, it has to be a world connected goal in order to change the chemistry of our atmosphere.
I'm interested in your work with Noah. Because
Well, I don't work with NOAA, I just had that training.
well, let's talk about your training.
Okay.
Because it's the ocean that, it's our water.
Yes.
Water is life.
Yes.
Okay, and so the oceans are really in trouble. So go ahead, talk about your training there.
Okay, so some just basic things about oceans is, well, it's really heavy and depressing. But I'll put it in one perspective just to understand. When you have carbon dioxide and you mix it with water, it becomes carbonic acid. This is the same acid that here in Kentucky and back home in Missouri is what allows caves to exist, right? It's the same acid that dissolves our limestone and dolomite to make caves. Well, because this acid now of carbon dioxide and is mixing with our ocean waters are 30% more acid now than they were in 1980. So all the little tiny organisms that have little tiny coatings on them are being dissolved, and this is the main food source for mackerel and all these different other food sources, and it's plummeting at the bottom of the food chain or at the top of the food chain before it goes down. So nonetheless, the oceans are really, really feeling the pool just like everywhere on the planet Earth.
What then can we to mitigate some of these issues? It's just like each of us. And does that really make a difference?
So you can do feel good things on your own, you know. I like back at home, my husband and I were the very first ones to have solar panels on our house and intertie them with our local co-op. We were the first ones to do that back in 2008. And we have solar air heating and solar water heating on our house. You know, those are pretty good things, you know, because this is my life. I'm practicing what I'm preaching, right? Because this is what I teach. But it has to be way bigger than that. It can't be individual. This has to really come from the top down, and we have to have leaders that are big and bold and make big, big decisions about our use. And some of that in other countries is happening, and it's a phenomenal thing. It's really exciting. But there's also, you know, there's growing pains to it. Our solar tech is really awesome, but it has rooms to grow too. You know, it has rooms to get better. So does our wind technology as well. We have to go through those growing pains and perfect it. And it's gonna be one of those things that hopefully, and at the very, very end of this, I had about 5 slides from 5 different countries of the youth.
Slides are available now if you have something particular you want to zoom in on as you wrap up.
Well, I'm about. Could you take me to the pictures at the very end of the kiddos?
And Tom, did you have a question in the meantime?
Okay, that's a long ways away. That's at the beginning.
Oh,
So
Tom may have a question. Go ahead, Tom.
Ms. Miles, thank you so much for a wonderful presentation, and you are extremely patient with our technology. Thank you. My name is Tom Bonert, and I have one comment, but I'll move quickly to my question.
Okay.
The comment is, I attended a presentation a few years ago where another expert such as yourself acknowledged, yes, I know that there are not 100% of scientists who agree about global warming. She said it's only 98%. So she then made the connection. So if 98% of experts told you you shouldn't get on that airplane, would you listen to them? So that was the comment. It was pretty compelling. My question is this. You don't have to convince me. I'm fully behind you. But it's very frustrating to me when I'm around friends or others who are doubters. In the winter time, when it might be 0 degrees, when we might have 10 degrees of snow, and they laugh and say, see there, and they talk about global warming, but look how cold it is. Can you help?
Hello? Okay. It's like, did this go away too? That was what was going to happen right after that last slide. Okay, so when the jet stream, my presentation was actually going to include what happened in Texas this last winter, because it's a prime example of confusion. People think, oh, look at the record-breaking cold temperatures. Where's your global warming? Exactly like what you just said. But that has to do, we can still have cold, but our cold is displacing. It's not staying at the poles really solid because the jet stream is slowing down, like I was just presenting. And that is because the temperature differentiation at the poles and the equator isn't as drastically different. Just like with that thunderstorm, not quite is drastically different behind that front, you're not going to get as tense winds. You understand that part of it? So if you can understand that, maybe you can share that, but you know, some human beings are interesting creatures. And there's something deep into our psyche that if we completely don't understand something fully, we don't necessarily appreciate the information at all. So some people can take the information lightly and still go with it, and then some people need to fully understand it, and then some others, they just are within their own beliefs so much that that's okay, that's the route they're going to take. We just hope that that's not leaders. But to answer your question, I was actually going to physically show you what NASA saw. The polls, the same time Texas was in a deep freeze for the first time on record, the whole state was in a freeze warning, or I don't know if it was a freeze warning, but had record low temperatures for the whole entire state. Heat was at the poles. They were having excessively warm weather at the North Pole because the polar vortex had split and fell down across the continents. Okay, so and that's because the strength of the jet streams are not holding it all together.
Thank you very much. I'm gonna have you around when the next person.
I would love to teleport. Okay.
I just wanted to add to your comment about other countries. Very fortunate 3 years ago to spend 2 weeks in Italy, visited a number of vineyards and wineries throughout the country. 100% of them were powered by solar energy.
Wow. Yes, and a lot of my slides were actually going to show the intensity from other countries. And the slides here at the very end are so powerful because I was floored when there was 2,000 of us doing this multi-day training by these professional atmospheric scientists. And we all had to do essay applications to actually get into this training. I was floored because at one point during the training, they asked 600 of the 2,000 to stand up and be recognized because 600 of the 2,000 were between the ages of 13 and 18 that decided to participate into that training. So it's something magical, and then they got up on stage and bashed all this old saying that we're old dogs that can't learn new tricks, we're not moving fast enough, we're not actually understanding what is occurring, all that stuff, and then, we had to swallow some of that down. But nonetheless, I know we complain about the youth a lot in many ways, but I was very impressed by the youth that were there at that training, and that even my niece, I have a few nieces, and they just seem to get the information and hold on to it and run with it easier. Takes us a while for synapses to move for some of us, but nonetheless, I was very, very moved by the youth and how they are really progressing. And when I'm teaching them, because I do a field science certification with juniors and seniors in high school, and I tell them that this is an amazing time to be alive because they have the ability to be excessively creative in trying to problem solve like never before,
You just went on with the youth thing. I was going to make a quick comment. Her niece, my daughter, if you could talk a little bit about just the education that you guys are doing with those kids. My daughter completely looked at me baffled one day when she was in a meltdown because I had taken the stuff and thrown it in the trash can. And it was paper. It doesn't go in the trash can. It goes in the recycle bin, right? And she was meltdown because it was hurting the planet. And that was common for her, and it was something I had to learn. But can you talk a little bit about what we as adults can do to help? A lot of our kids in this room are grown and gone, and we've got grandkids. But can you talk a little bit about maybe books they could see, shows they could watch, resources that we can train ourselves on besides the people like you that we've got to bring to come in, that could be something we could find here that we can share?
Sure. Nova put out a really, really good documentary just about 1.5 years ago. It's called Decoding the Weather Machine. Decoding the Weather Machine, put out by Nova and PBS, that actually shows all the scientists doing the graphs that I just showed earlier. And you get a more straightforward perspective of how those graphs are formed. Also, Also, oh gosh, I mean, you can just Google it and there's all kinds of information, but you gotta be careful where your information's coming from too. But nonetheless, you know, NASA and NOAA things, I have a very, strong respect for the basic scientific method. Remember back in, you know, going to biology classes for the first time, you learn about scientific method and the processes to make scientific methodology set up really well. And because I've been a part of so many different field science research and seeing how scientific methodology, when it's set up really well, can be very, very accurate in almost black and white information. When I went to this training, it felt like the information and the scientific methodology behind it was very, very clear and precise, and easy for me to understand. So I felt like I could share that understanding. So the information from NASA and NOAA out there is pretty abundant and pretty direct. I've always, though, been frustrated about the communication skills from the scientific world to the general public. There seems to be a disconnect, and it's probably multifaceted, but the language that needs to be spoke so that the general public can understand scientific data. There's always a break in that. I've gone to different conferences and I've listened to scientists talk and I'm like, that would go over everybody's head in most rooms. You know, they need to break it down in a different way. It doesn't have to be dumbed down. That's not just interpreted a different way so that our general public can understand what some of this intense scientific research actually is.
Actually, that's what I spent my 40+ career trying to do.
What did you do? I don't know your background.
I'm a medical journalist, but that's okay.
Oh,
Here you go.
okay.
Question.
Robert English, English Insurance Group. What is your take on electric cars?
Okay, so learning curves there with electric cars, definitely. The big point for electric cars, and there's gonna be a section of that on here too, is that the point is to actually plug them into renewable resources. There, two things. Technology has to increase in efficiency for our storage capacity. That's the batteries. If we can get on board, and there's a lot of researchers trying to do really, really good things with energy storage capacity. If we can improve our storage capacity, the electric cars will be phenomenal, especially if we're plugging them into renewable resource energies that we're actually charging those batteries up with. They're not designed to plug in and then you're using coal to charge those batteries. That's not the big view picture there. They're saying that by 2023, 2024, the cost for the powertrain, you know, everything to make that car run is going to be cheaper to make than fossil fuel vehicles by 2023, 2024. And that's because of a world economic purchase of electric vehicles across the world. It was in 2019 that Japan finally, in 2019, Japan now has more electric car fueling stations than they have fossil fuel stations across their whole country. So we have faltered in some of that technology. We're slower compared to some other countries in those technological things. But the electric car, I think, will be great depending on what you're plugging into and if we can get the best type of energy storage capacity.
I gotta tell you, growing up in Hurricane Alley, when you lose power, you can't drive your car. So that's just my take. All right, can you leave us with some words of wisdom? What would you want us all to know?
I think it's very important that if you take the time to really fully understand this information and you take it to heart and you feel the same way I do about the planet Earth. I was taught since I was a little girl that this planet is an absolutely gorgeous creation by our Creator. That's what I was taught, and I still feel that way. And so I feel that the best way to appreciate this gorgeous creation is to actually thoroughly respect it. this gift that has been given. And so if you take that information, however you want to interpret your beliefs on the creator and the creation, but if you take that information, we do need to share it in a big way across the big board of all of our leaders, and in the trickle-down effect to even our mayors of our towns, the representatives, the Senate, all the way up to the very top needs to thoroughly understand this information and make big changes.
Thank you so much.
So vote.
So thank you, Granite. Thank you so much for being our production assistant. You did a great job. Thank you very much. Yes, another round of applause for. All right, everybody. Now, we want to mention the big board of names over here. Where's Doris Seymour? Did she do that? She's been doing amazing jobs getting folks back here. Somebody she called is actually in the meeting. So go over there and get a name and call someone who's been MIA and say, come to the meeting. Also, you want to see Greg Braun right there. Here you are. There's a service project sign up sheet. You have information on your table about the Steamboat Weekend, and you'll hear it in the announcements. And if you are able to come and help us clean up the knot and are available for the ice cream social, please write your name down there so we will know you're there. I would like to welcome Mike Poole to the stage to present our Paul Harris Fellow Matching Campaign. Mike is a Paul Harris Fellow, a Lifetime Service Award recipient, 1912 Society member, Paul Harris Society member, sustaining member, and major donor. Mike is also past president of the club, 2005, 2006.
Thank you, President Jean. One of President Jean's emphasis this year is to increase the number of Paul Harris Fellows in the club. When she asked the Paul Harris Fellows to stand, about half of the audience does. To give you an idea how we stack up to the other three large clubs in our district, this slide shows that 49% of our members are Paul Harris Fellows. This compares with 62% in Bowling Green, 63% in Paducah, and 94% in Murray. Those people in Murray are overachievers. The board of directors has approved a motion by the Rotary Foundation Committee to encourage all members who are not Paul Harris Fellows to receive their first Paul Harris Fellow through a matching recognition points campaign, and it's open until October 31st of this year. During this program, the club will match a $1 contribution with a recognition point the club has earned through its contribution to the Rotary Foundation. This picture up here with Paul Harris says there are two ways, or here are two ways for this to happen. You can become a Paul Harris Fellow by contributing $1,000, or you can reach 1,000 points by a combination of dollars and points. And so the club is offering points to help you do this. We tried to find a newer picture of Paul Harris, but we need to remember that our founder died in 1947. And so newer pictures just do not exist. Now, I've got three examples here in case you need numbers to put with this. If a Rotarian right now has a recognition amount of 600 from their past contributions, they need 400 more to become a Paul Harris Fellow. With a $200 contribution and 200 recognition points from the club, the Rotarian will earn their first Paul Harris Fellow. Now, here's what I call the ultimate example. If you are today standing at 0, okay, now my slides don't do anything. They don't move, they have no. Okay, did we get the first example? This is the second, this is the first example. Well, my second example is if you are at 0 contribution today, that if you are interested in becoming a Paul Harris Fellow, you can do this with a $500 cash contribution, and the club will match you with 500 recognition points, and you will receive your first Paul Harris Fellow. And finally, the one I call the building example. If you're at 0 today and you say, "Oh, I can't do it all at once," contribute $250. The club will contribute $250, and you're at 500, and you're halfway to becoming a Paul Harris Fellow. So
As you can see, one size doesn't fit all of us, but we have something that will fit you. This donation to the annual fund of the Rotary Foundation will do good here in Louisville and our district here in Kentucky and around the world. The match is open to every club member who's not a Paul Harris Fellow through October 31st of this year. To learn what your existing recognition amount is, either you can text me, or you can call me, or you can email me, or my friend Rick Harnan. You can do the same with us, with him. We'll be happy to supply that information to you and tell you where to mail the checks and how much you make the check out for and all those good things. So please, if you're not a Paul Harris Fellow, consider joining us, the half the club it is. Thank you.
It's a good program, guys, so let's take advantage of it. Let's be cool, worry, what? All right. Tom Stone, now owner of Stone Legal Group PLLC, will provide today's announcements. Tom.
Good afternoon, Rotarians. This Saturday, not this Saturday, but September 25th at 9:30 is the day and time for the service project currently at 9th and Main Street to give this Louisville landmark a quick wash and wipe down. There will be a 600-gallon water truck and all cleaning supplies will be provided to you. We hope you'll join us. Contact Greg Braun if you have questions. And on that same day at noon, make plans to join other Rotarians for an ice cream social. Kevin Fields has provided the party location at the Louisville Central Community Center at 1300 West Muhammad Ali. The cost is $13 per person. Make plans to join Rotarians and others at the Great Steamboat Launch Ceremony on Monday, September 27th. President Jean will kick off the ceremony, followed by the District Governor, Gail Story, Secretary of Tourism, Mike Berry, along with Ward Wilson of Kentucky Waterways and my brother-in-law, and Sean Beards, President and Chief Operating Officer of the American Queen Steamboat Company, to provide proclamations and acknowledgements as we help to kick off this effort to promote the goal of saving our rivers. Some of you who are working on this project, along with the district leadership, will be receiving an invite to a VIP luncheon the day before on Sunday afternoon. Next week's meeting on September 16th, our guest speaker will be Captain Kelly Leckley. The presentation topic is One Life. Her journey as a transgender UPS pilot. It is a fascinating story, by the way. I have heard her speak, and it is a wonderful, wonderful story. I strongly encourage everyone to take part in that. Rotary Golf Day is back in full swing. With a new lower price and better format, make plans for October 11th, Columbus Day, at the Glen Oaks Country Club. For a total of only $50, you'll receive a buffet lunch that includes a drink and a round of golf with a cart. Prizes will include, in both male and female divisions, longest drive, longest putt, closest to the pin, and a few frog surprises. You can sign up individually or in pairs, threesomes or foursomes. Reservation requires a $15 deposit before October the 4th. Contact the Rotary office at 589-1800 or send an email to rotary@rotary45.org. A very special Kentucky honor flight is scheduled for October the 20th. This is the first and perhaps only 2021 honor flight for Kentucky and Southern Indiana area veterans of World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. Please make plans to attend and assist this special group and their families before or after their trip to Washington, D.C. to visit various war memorials, the Arlington Cemetery, and includes lunch and meetings with several elected officials. They will return to Louisville later that day between 9 p.m. and 10 p.m. It will be a memorable day for these veterans, and I hope you'll plan to join the crowd and cheer their return. Every veteran deserves our gratitude and thanks for their service, and your presence will mean so much to them. We appreciate your registering your meeting attendance a week in advance. Please use this link that's on the screen in order to RSVP email that you received, or scan the QR code at your table before you leave today. Please note that reservations close at 4 p.m. tomorrow, Friday, as this is the deadline the restaurant requires. So please respond with your intentions by tomorrow. The meeting is also going to be available by Zoom. Now, it's time to celebrate birthdays for Rotarians who are celebrating birthdays this week. On September the 9th, we have John Harrelson and Dan Hartledge. On September 11th, Kristen Boone and Laurie Bodiger. On the 12th, Jay Davidson and Todd Lanham, as well as John O'Callahan. And on September 13th, Ed Galloway. Back to you, President Gene.
This is your birthday song. This is your birthday song, and it's a very long, yeah. Okay, again, we want to bring your attention to the big board, also the sign-up sheet for the service event on Saturday. And again, on your table is the flyer for Saving Our Rivers. If you have any questions about that, please let me know. Thank you all for coming. I want to thank our guests. Thank you very much for your patience in your presentation. All right, go do good work and have fun doing it. This meeting is adjourned.
There you are, yeah. I see you all about